Hello and welcome. I'm Kritika. In this demo, our goal is to build a change order workflow agent that assists product managers in efficiently generating change orders for component replacements and automatically adding workflow participants in line with company policies. The change order AA agent empowers product managers and data stewards to quickly process component replacements through change orders. It streamlines the workflow, reduces manual effort, and improves overall change management efficiency. To create the agent from scratch, we need to follow two steps. Create and configure the nodes for the agent. Start by adding the business object function node to read and update application data. Use an LLM node when you need natural language interpretation or to generate responses. Define agent node to coordinate tasks by triggering other agents or workflows as part of your process. Add condition nodes to route the flow based on business rules. Use setVariable node to store intermediate values, flags, or user context used by the later nodes. Utilize the send email node to automatically send emails to the right recipient based on the workflow action. Once your nodes are configured, thoroughly test your agent in the debug mode. To begin, let's go to AA Agent Studio, which is where developers and administrators create and manage these workflow agents. Let's get on to Tools, AA Agent Studio. Before assembling our agent team, we need to set up the necessary tools and agents for the workflow. Our first step is to create a document tool that can retrieve company policy documents needed for change approval. We'll get on to Tools. We'll create a document tool. We'll name it as Participant Policy Tool. Key in the family and product. Key in a description. Let's add the policy document to the tool. Let's name the document. Set it to ready to publish. Let's attach the policy document. The policy document is a pipe-separated document that holds the approver and reviewer details for each workflow stage based on the change type and item class details. This will help the change policy agent to automatically fetch required reviewers and approvers for the change orders generated by the agent. Let's save the tool. Create the document tool. Next, we need to run the process agent document schedule process to publish this document. Get on to Tools. Schedule process. Let's look for the job. Let's submit this. When the job completes, the document will be published for the tool. Next, let's build the change participant agent to fetch participants for the change order. Let's get out of the Agent Studio. Navigate to the Agents tab. Let's create a new agent. Let's name the agent. Notice the code fills in automatically. Key in a family and product. Set the maximum interaction limit for the agent. Key in a description. Set the agent persona. We'll set it to product data stewards. Now let's enter the instructions for our agent. This is where you'll tell the agent what to do and how to do it. Clear and direct prompts will help the agent perform better. Here is what our instructions say step by step. First, we set the agent primary task. It's an engineering change order creation agent that can take inputs like item, org details, and participant details from the company policy document. Then we instruct the agent to call the participant policy v3 document attached to the participant policy tool we just created and fetch the reviewer and approver details. Once this is done, the agent should build the JSON input in this format to add workflow participants to each stage of the workflow. So our agent now has clear, detailed instructions on how to add the change participants. Say create to create the agent header. Next, let's add the tools required for the agent. We'll need the add items to change order business object tool to add affected items to change order. Let's add the tool. Then we'll need the participant policy document tool to get the policy details. Let's look for the tool. The document we added is publish. Let's add the tool. Our change participant agent is set. We have got the prompt and tools ready. Let's go ahead and create and publish this agent. We are ready with the tools and agents required for our workflow. Now let's build a workflow agent to automatically create change orders to replace end-of-life components in all affected items. Head on to the Agents Team tab. Let's create a new agent team. Key in a name. Enter the family and product details. Set the type to workflow. This organizes the steps into a sequence, automating the process end-to-end. Add a description. Next, let's define the input triggers required for the agent. These are essential details our workflow needs from the user. For this workflow, we'll gather the component that has reached end of life, so we know what needs replacing. Then we'll need the replacement component, so we know what will take its place. We'll define webhook to collect these input from the user. First, you need the end of life item, which is a string. Say apply. Then you need the replacement item, which is a string again. That sets up our input trigger. Next, let's set up the workflow variables. Variables store data as you move through the workflow. Each node in your workflow can access and update these variables, and they are super handy for storing IDs, constants, or information to pass between the steps. For this workflow, we'll define an item variable to store the user input end-of-life item. It is of type string. Then again, you'll need the replacement item, a variable to store the replacement item input by the user. Then you need a variable for OR code to store your business master org to create engineering change orders. Finally, you need the email data variable to build the email content dynamically. That creates our agent team header. With triggers and variables ready, let's build the workflow node. Each workflow node performs a specific task such as extracting data, applying business logic, preparing input for a large language model, or sending notifications. These nodes are connected in sequence to ensure that each step is executed smoothly and the workflow remains controlled and organized. To add a node, just hover over between the start and end of your workflow and click to choose the node type. Let's start with the set variable node. Here we set the values for our variables. Let's name the node. Let's add value to the variables. First, let's assign the master org for engineering change orders to the org code variable. In this instance, it is operations, so let me key in the org code. Say apply. Next, we'll assign the user input for end-of-life item and replacement item to the corresponding variables. Let's start with the end-of-life item. And we'll use the context to assign value to this variable. Context lets you easily reference system settings, workflow or user details, input triggers, variables and other nodes. In our case, we need the input trigger for end-of-life item. So get on to triggers. Choose the input variable that holds the end-of-life item. Say apply. Similarly, let's assign the value to the replacement item. Choose the variable, use the context, and get the value from the trigger. We are good with the variable assignment. Say create. Our first node is created. Next, we need a business object function to fetch item ID for the user provided end of life item. So let's create a business object node. Key in the name. Key in the family and product. We'll call the item ID retriever business object with the get item ID from item function. And the input parameter for this function will be our item variable that stores the user input of end of life item. We'll use the context and assign the variable value here. Say apply. And the output will be the list of item ID that is stored in array. We'll name the output, set it as array. Say apply. The business object node is created. Next, again, we need a business object function to retrieve the component various details for the provided item. So we'll create a business object node again. Give it a name. Key in the family and product. We'll call the BOM various business object with the get parent by component item number function. Again, the input will be our item variable that stores the user input of end of life item. We'll use the variable node to assign this value. And the output will have the details like the list of parent items that will be stored in array with total number of parent items written, their count, limit and offset details. Let's say create to create this node. Our business object nodes are created. Next in the workflow, we'll need LLM node to process this component various business object output to construct a comma-separated list of parent inventory item IDs. This will help us decide the affected items for our change order. So we'll create a LLM node. Give it a name. In the prompt, we'll ask the LLM to extract the get component various node output and construct a comma-separated list of parent inventory item ID. Set the temperature. We'll store the output in a string variable. We'll call it as parent inventory item IDs. Apply. The LLM node is created. Now our LLM node is ready with the parent item details. Now, if there are any parent item IDs that includes this end of life component, then we'll need to initiate a change order to replace it. But if there are no parent items affected, we can simply notify the user that no further action is needed. Time for a condition. We'll create a condition node. Give it a name. In the condition, we'll check if the parent inventory item ID is not null. Say create. The branching is done. Now, when the branching is true, that is when the parent items are available, we need to start creating a change order. So let's go for a business object node to create a change order. We'll name the node. Key in the family and product. We'll use the create change order business object. And we'll call the create change order function. It needs the OR code input in which the change order should be created. So we'll use the context to pass the master org details from the OR code variable. Say apply. And the business object will give you the change ID, change notice, change name and change type name as output. Let's create this node. After creating the change order to add affected items, we'll need details such as parent item class, revision code, component sequence ID and bill sequence ID. These are required to create affected items and accurately redline the component replacement. So let's start building these details. First, we'll need a business object node to fetch parent item class and revision details. So let's start with the business object. Key in the name, family and product. We'll use the get parent class and revision business object and call the get class and revision function. For the input, we'll pass the parent inventory item IDs using extract parent item details node as input to this business object. Say apply, and the OR code will obtain from the master org variable. Say apply, and we'll need an output JSON where you'll get an array with details like item ID, revision ID, and item class. Let's create this node. Next, we need a LLM node to fetch component and build sequence details. Let's create the node. Key in the name. In the prompt, we'll instruct the LLM to fetch item class details and replacement item details from the earlier nodes and variables. Then, based on this input, we'll ask the LLM to construct an item revision map with details like item ID, revision ID, component sequence ID, and build sequence ID. Set the temperature. In the output, we'll get the parent item class, which is a string, then the item revision map we built, and the replacement item. Let's create this node. We have built the necessary details to add the affected items to our change order. So next, let's create an agent node to call the seeded change order affected item agent. Create an agent node. Key in the name. Fill in the family and product details. Call the change order affected item assistant agent. Next, we'll construct the input message for this agent. In the message, we'll need the details of the replacement item, the change order ID that is created in the earlier node, and the item revision map we constructed earlier using the business object node. Say apply. Say create. Now this node will add the affected items to our change order created earlier and redline the component to be replaced with replacement item. Next, we need another agent to automatically add reviewers and approvers to a change order in each stage based on our company policy. So we'll include an agent node again. Key in a name. Fill in the family and product details. We'll call the change participant agent we built earlier in this demo. We'll construct the input message to this agent. We'll add the change order details that was created in the earlier node, and we'll also include the parent item class output. This is required because the policy document will fetch the reviewer and approver based on change type and item class. Say apply. Say create. So now our change order is ready with the affected items redline and participants added. Next, we'll create a node to generate a deep link to access the change order created. We'll use an agent node to call the seeded workflow agent. Key in the name, family and product. Let's call the workflow deep link agent. Then we'll pass the change order ID generated from the earlier node as an input to this agent. Say apply. And the output from this agent will be a deep link to access the change order created. Say create. Our deep link node is ready. Next, we need to email the details of the replacement done with the change order details to the users. First, we'll use a variable node to construct the email data and then use the email node to trigger this email. So let's start with the variable node. Key in a name. Next, we need to set value to the email data variable. In the email message, we'll state the component replacement is successful, and we'll also add the deep link for the change order created for the user to easily access the change order details. Say apply. Our email data is ready. Next, let's create the email node. Key in a name. We'll set a sample recipient. Key in the subject. In the subject, we'll state it is a component replacement summary for the end of life item. Then in the email content, we'll use the variable we just built to dynamically generate the email data. The email node is ready, and that completes our true branch. So when we have affected parent items because of end of life item, we are creating a change order, adding the affected items and workflow participants to the change order. We then email the change order details with a deep link. Getting back to the main flow, when the condition is false, we'll trigger an email to inform the user that there are no affected items for this end of life item. So we'll create an email node here. Give it a name. Add the recipients. Key in a subject. And in the email content, we'll state that there are no affected items due to this end of life component. Say create. Now our false branch is also ready. Our workflow is now complete. Let's review it from the top. We begin by getting the user input and assign value to variables. Then we use the business object nodes to fetch the item IDs and component values details. Then we use an LLM node to construct parent item details. We then check if there are any affected parent items because of this component end of life. If yes, we create a change order, add affected parent items, redline the component replacement, and finally email the change order details with deep link. When there are no affected items, we'll email the user that there are no affected items because of this component end of life. We are good with the agent. Let's start testing it in the debug mode. We see the trigger input we defined. Let's key in the input values. We'll key in the component that has reached end of life. We'll key in a replacement component for this. Start test. In the debug mode, we could see the workflow execution step by step. Our variables for master org, end of life item and replacement item are set with the values provided based on user input. Then using the provided item number, the item IDs are fetched using the business object tool. In the next node, using the input item number provided, the component values details are fetched. We get the build sequence ID, component sequence ID, parent inventory item ID, and item number. Then the LLM constructs the comma-separated parent item numbers based on the previous node output. Then in the condition node, it checks if there are any affected item for the provided user input. In our case, it is true, we have affected item, so the condition branches to the true loop. It creates a change order and we get all the change order attribute details in the output. Then in the next node, using the parent item ID and OR code as an input, the agent fetches the item class and revision details. Then using this information, it constructs the item revision map with the item ID, revision ID, component sequence ID, and build sequence ID details. These inputs are used by the change order affected item agent, and it adds the affected item to the change order created earlier. It also updates the bill of material with the component to be replaced. Then in the next step, the change participant agent fetches the right approver and reviewer for each stage of the workflow based on the company policy document. And it also adds the corresponding participants to the change order. Then deep link is generated for this change order. And finally, email message is constructed. And finally, email is triggered successfully with the details about the component replace with the deep link to the change order. Let's use the deep link and get to the change order created and review its details. The change order name clearly states that the change order is created from the component replacement agent. The header has all the required attributes. Moving on to the affected objects. Parent items that includes the end of life component is automatically added as affected item. And when we get into affected items, we could see structures has redline automatically, and it has replaced the end of life component with the user provided input. Getting back to the workflow. In the participants, We see at each stages the required reviewers and approvers are automatically added based on the company policy details. Thus, the agent streamlines product management by automatically handling component end of life scenarios. It creates change orders for replacing the component in all affected items and includes the necessary participants following established policy guidelines.